I'd like to call this July 12th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting work session to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Soe?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We are all present. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is our district goals. Our district goals remain the same: academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, community engagement. We normally have a little vignette or a way to highlight our district goals, but I think our recognition will do a nice job of highlighting our district goals today. Next on our agenda is public comment. I do have one slip. Leslie Stout, are you here? Hi, Leslie. You will go to the podium, state your name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
My name is Leslie Stout, and my address is 9105 North Marks Road, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. I'm here because I'm here to address the board as a concerned taxpayer and resident, and a mother of two, one of which is about to go to kindergarten in Strongsville schools. And so, like many parents here, I'm sure you've seen the news stories about everything that's happening with CRT, with all the transgender things that are going on in the community. And I wanted to address the board and just bring up the fact that I realize that we are in a changing culture and things are changing in our school system. And I realize that there is a lot of things going on with the transgender roles that our community is experiencing as well. I had a conversation recently with the superintendent, and I was concerned because children are being forced to use other children's pronouns and affirm things that are sin, affirm things that aren't true. And I would just like to say that as a parent, you have a fight coming up. These are things that are to be addressed now as the culture is changing, and not when we are full-blown and engrossed in these things. These are things that I'm concerned about, as well as I'm sure other people. Compared to 5 years ago, it seems like our children are far more, it's more compulsory to participate in these things and to affirm other people and what other people don't believe are true. God, through Christ, has already given my daughter an identity, and I want to be used by him in developing that identity that he's already given her. And I can tell you for a fact he doesn't make mistakes, and we are to therefore be just as he is perfect. We're to strive for that through Christ. I believe this to be true for myself and for my family, and I would like my daughter to grow up in a place where she can tell other people about Christ, and if they want to listen to her, and if not, they can carry on and do whatever they wish. So I just wanted to come before the board and just bring up a couple of issues that I thought were pertinent in doing so today. There is a math workbook out there that I recently read about after the conversation that I had with Dr. Ryba, where teachers are encouraging students not to come up with the right answer. And I couldn't find much information out there about this particular workbook, but that is of great concern, because I could tell you, as someone who hires doctors and nurses, I want those doctors and nurses to be knowledgeable and to have the right answer. So I'm interested in learning more from the teachers and students as well on issues like that, on how math is changing and how curriculum is changing. And how do we go forward from there? It's a place where I would like to make sure that free speech still has a place, and my daughter can talk about Jesus and lead others to Christ as well, if that so comes up, if that situation comes up. So I just wanted to bring up those issues. Is there time for questions or anything?
So, public comment is usually a chance for us to do a lot of listening and then to follow up. What I can tell you is our Erin's not here, correct?
She is not, but
Erin?
she's spoken through email with Mrs. Stout. I've spoken with Mrs. Stout as well.
So as far as
Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. McCall, as I shared, if there's more questions that come up that apply to Erin or me, we'll be more than happy to continue the conversation.
right, so as far as knowing what is being taught, and as someone getting ready to send a kindergartner, you have a decision to make. Dr. Ryba and Erin are always available to get you the answers you need. As far as the other things, we're here to listen. You're not the first parent to bring up those kinds of issues. We always are working on those. As far as our curriculum is concerned, I know that is an issue that everybody is always interested in, always working on. I was driving home from work today, and there's a Fordham study about how the states are doing with civics and teaching of history, and the good news is Ohio is in the good to, I gotta understand mediocre, but they're not awful. We're not excellent according to Fordham. So part of the thing to do is to figure out what they mean. But we got a B on civics, and we need some improvement according to them on U.S. history. So it's always something we can continue to get better at, and I think that's the name of the game for us here in Strongsville, is to always work together to get better at it. But like Dr. Ryba said, we're always available for questions. And you and I have spoken. We can continue that conversation, and we'll just keep the conversation going.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. Next on our agenda, is there any other public comment before I close public comment? Next on our agenda is recognition. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. We do have a series of recognitions tonight for some of our spring sports, so I'm going to turn it over to our athletic director, Denny Ziegler, to start us off. Denny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. Appreciate the opportunity once again to share, with the board and the city of Strongsville, these 10 outstanding athletes. It just seems like yesterday that they were at the state meet, and and then 3 weeks from now we'll be starting fall sports already. So it just goes by so fast. And for some of these athletes, I feel like this is second nature to them, because I feel like every season they are coming for a fall sport or a winter sport, and now a spring sport. So it just goes to show the character, their work ethic, and the multi-sport student athlete that we're striving for. So at this time, I want to turn over to Coach Koval to recognize the boys track athletes.
Thank you. All right, I think I am missing a few guys. I believe some are on vacation, and is that working? Some are on vacation, I'm able to make it, but I'm going to bring the guys up here, so you can just come up here. You have to stand the whole time. If I'm up here, you're up here. Come on, gentlemen. All right, thank you. This is awesome that we get to do this and have the opportunity to talk about these guys. I know that they've heard a lot of this stuff. You guys can stand over here. I feel like a broken record sometimes. I could come up here, and if I don't stick to this script, it could be an hour before I am done talking about them and all the cool things that they've done. This season, we've had mounds of uncertainty. We had our share of quarantines. I believe when we even got to a track meet, and I got a call that said I had to quarantine some people because of contact tracing. So lots of uncertainty. The words adjust and adapt became a huge part of everything that we do all the time, from practices, where we were meeting, what we were doing, just constantly changing. And I have to talk about the season that we didn't have in order to kind of understand where they're at now. So losing a season set us back. So that before this season started, the last time the senior got to compete, he was a sophomore, and a freshman or a sophomore, junior, he got to compete when he was a junior because we had an indoor season, but they missed a full season. So there's a big gap in their development. And I realized as the season began that that gap was big, and we were trying to figure some things out. And I know Andrew Arslanian's not here, but even as the season came to a close, I was still trying to figure out exactly where he was. So I'm just going to go down the list. I know some of these guys aren't here, but I feel like they deserve at least the recognition of being named. So Jared Lewis is a state qualifier. He is not here in our 4x2. He was our team's point leader. He scored 161.5 points, and that earned him the field MVP award. He was our pole vaulter, and then he was in every sprint event that I needed him to be in when I needed him to be there. He was a team captain, GCC scholar athlete, and he'll be attending Mercyhurst in the fall, and I believe he's going to try to do some track stuff there. Andrew Arslanian is also not here, 4x2 relay. He was our workhorse this season. I had him in everything from an 800 meter all the way down to the 100 meter and all the relays in between. Team captain, scholar athlete, and unfortunately, track is not his best event. Swimming is his best event, so he's going to Cleveland State, and he's going to continue the Arslanian legacy there at Cleveland State. Matt Cornelius is state qualifier in the 4x2 as well. Matt, this season, received second team all-conference honors in the 400 meter dash. He was the district champion and finished 5th in the region on an extremely cold day when it was supposed to be 70s and sunny, like it was the rest of the year. Matt scored 121.5 points for us. That earned him the Sprints MVP award. He was also a team captain, GCC scholar athlete, and he will be going to University of Notre Dame, South Bend, where he's going to continue his track and field career there. And then Nick Turner here is the new guy, moved from California, and I can't be happier that he was influenced to run track and field. He's the king of trash talking, and having him in class every day and going back and forth that he was not going to run track and I was going to make him run track, and he told me he wasn't going to run track, and now he ran track. And 3-sport athlete, which is very hard to do, as many of you know. So I am very happy that he is here, but he's only a junior, so I get to have him for another year. So those two and the two that I was talking about are the 4x2. They earned, let's see, the 4x2 was our conference champion, and I stopped by the mailbox today and I found these in there, so I figured they could get these as well while they're here. So these are their conference champion medals. So Andrew, I'll give you that. That's for later. There you go. So they get those. Getting this stuff done. Sorry, I'm starting to be long now. So they were conference champions, district champions, and then 3rd place at the region, and 15th best in the state in the end. So congratulations to you two guys. And then there's Andrew. And Andrew was not with us as a freshman. He was at another school and decided to come back to us, and I could not be happier that he did, because here he is, and he is not only one of the best high jumpers to walk the halls at Strongsville High School. He is one of the best in the state, and he's only a junior, and he's got a chance to come back. But he's still not done. He's still jumping with the Strongsville Track Club, and he qualified to travel to Texas, which I don't know if he's going to do that, but he qualified for the Junior Olympics, and he's going to probably give that a shot as well in Texas. And he gets a whole nother year to try to break a school record and do some really awesome things. And in the end, he was 8th place at the state. I know he's not happy with that, but that's an incredible feat. So congratulations, you guys. Thank you. Right, you're here. And I'll turn it over to Coach Cerrone.
Congratulations, guys. Congratulations, Coach Koval, on your accomplishments this year. So we're going to turn our attention to the girls. So girls, if you want to just come on up and stand and be recognized for your accomplishments. So on the girls' side, this has been, as Coach Koval alluded to, a different track season because for 4 of the girls that are standing here, it's as, even though they're sophomores, it's as if they are freshmen when it comes to track, since they did not have a season as freshmen, and it was truly a freshman year for track, even though they're sophomores, if that makes sense. So I just want to allude to a few accomplishments for the girls. We look upon track and field at Strongsville High School as a collaborative event between coaching staffs, between boys coaching staff and girls coaching staff. So this has been a collaboration that we have been under since Coach Koval and I have been together since 2010. And on the girls' side, this is the 8th consecutive year that girls have qualified for the state meet. And so keeping with that tradition, we stand here today to recognize the accomplishments of the girls 4x1, which did qualify to the state meet. This becomes the 5th 4x1 to qualify to the state meet in the history of track and field at Strongsville for girls track. And in their accomplishments of running and being competitive, and I'm going to eventually turn the table or turn the mic over to Coach Gieskin, who had a significant impact on bringing the girls to a culminating state meet appearance. And in the state meet appearance, the girls 4x1 did run 11th out of the 16 teams that did qualify. And the great thing about their state meet contributions is the fact that their best time of the year was run at the state meet. So that speaks volumes of the hard work and the efforts that all of the girls put in this year for track and field. I'd also like to take a few moments to thank Shelby. As a senior, she epitomizes what we are trying to accomplish at the athletics department of Strongsville High School, and that is multi-sport athletes. We know of your incredible accomplishments in soccer and for your efforts going to Xavier University this fall to compete in soccer. But I just want to say thank you for being with us for 3 years of your high school career in track and field, and being a mentor to the girls that stand with you today and going forward as you hand off, literally, not only the baton, but metaphorically, you're handing off that baton to the other girls that stand here with you. So at this time, what I would like to do is to turn over the mic to Coach Gieskin, who will have a few more words to say about the girls.
I just wanted to come up and piggyback off Coach Cerrone a little bit. He already went through all your accomplishments that you guys had throughout the year. I just want to come up and tell how proud I am of you guys and how well you guys did through the whole postseason, stepping up in those big moments through injuries, through some hardships. We had to run through some crappy weather one night, but you guys persevered and you guys made it all the way to the state meet. And when the gun went off, you guys ran your fastest time. Just super proud of you. And Shelby, I'm looking forward to keeping track of your career as you move on to the next step. And I can't wait to see what these young girls can do in their future in all their other sports as well. So thank you, and I can't wait to see.
So at this time, we'd like to recognize our state qualifiers in the track state and track meet, which is Taylor Demerly, Paige Fabrizi, Shelby Salee, Mackenzie Scholes, and that's our 4. I also have brought up with us, standing with us is Kennedy Griffin. And Kennedy was an alternate, all right, for our state track team this year. And I just want to say thank you to Kennedy for her accomplishments. And, you know, she was also a two-sport participant in club gymnastics and was hurt in the beginning of the season and persevered and came back with us towards the end of the season. And I just want to say thank you for your accomplishments of also being with the girls in their stretch to the state track meets. So congratulations to Taylor, Paige, Shelby, and Mackenzie for your appearances in the state track meet for 2021. Thank you.
I just want to, on behalf of the board and the administration, thank the coaches, thank the parents, thank the interested parties that are here, just because it's great to watch all of our athletes accomplish wonderful things, and most importantly, to thank the student athletes. I'm fond of saying you are examples of younger Mustangs, and the accomplishments that you achieve serve as a model for them so that they can grow up and achieve great things too. So thank you very much. So next on our agenda is Treasurer's Report, which is almost as exciting as recognition for track and field. But if anybody wanted to escape, now would be the time to do it. You're up, George.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Micko. I have two items for your consideration tonight. They both deal with startup cash at the beginning of the school year to establish the registered startup funds. So at the end of the school year, when they leave for the summer, they turn the money back over. And at the beginning of the school year, to get started again, we reissue the funds. So the first one is the Cafeteria Change Fund. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the Cafeteria Change Fund be established in the amount of $800. These funds are used to establish startup funds for the school cafeterias. And the next one is the Middle School Athletic Change Fund. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the Middle School Change Fund be established in the amount of $500. These funds are to be used to establish startup funds for middle school athletic events. And there's
Any questions for George? Hearing none, Dr. Ryba, you're up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. I do not have anything specific under the superintendent's report, so we're going to move to business services. Mr. Breckner is on vacation this week with his family, so I will be filling in as best as I can as we talk about two items. So as I shared with the board earlier in my update, I'd like to switch the order a little bit because we want to start with number 2, which is the tennis courts, because guidance on the tennis courts could impact number 1, which is our rental fee for costs. So the board, I have it on the board here, but the board members have a paper copy of the presentation. I'm not going to go through the first few slides in detail. Mr. Breckner presented these to you at the June meeting, talking about the installation of the new tennis courts, the increased desire to utilize those new courts. We talked about the city's plans for resurfacing and why our courts are of need at this point. And Mr. Breckner shared a few options with how to address tennis courts, because currently we have them locked. You can rent them for $50 an hour for all 6 courts, but currently they are not accessible to our community. So he shared some options, as are on the slides, of leave the gates locked at all times. Under number 2, allow public to rent them through the $50 an hour rate. Or number 3, make them available at designated times when the school district isn't using them. We could use keys, we could use key cards, cameras possibly would be needed, etc. So those were some options to consider, and that's where we left off in June. The board had some questions and gave some direction to Steve for some research. He did that, so we're looping back now to those 3 options, and And Steve, through my presentation with you tonight based on his research, is sharing some pros and cons to these options. So if you follow along on the board or in your sheet. So the option one was leave the gates locked at all times and do not allow community use of the new courts. What are some pros to that? The life expectancy, obviously, if it's only being used by our tennis players during specific seasons, the life expectancy would hit its maximum level, and there'd be no unexpected wear or tear between seasons, no damage, no vandalism, things of that nature. The cons would be, obviously, we have community members that want to use the courts. They're, from what we heard last time, probably some of the better courts in the city right now. And they want to use it, and that's a growing frustration. Obviously, we were able to put the tennis courts in because of the bond issue, because of the money the community afforded to that, and the savings we were able to realize through our strong financial management of that, but they are funded by the community. And at this time, I can't speak to you the regularity, but we have had to remove people from there. We have younger people that are climbing the fences to get into the tennis courts to utilize them. So that's of concern too, because those are higher fences that people are scaling to get in there. Any questions on option one? Option two is utilize them under the existing rental procedures that we have for the district. As a reminder, we have a board policy and administrative guidelines which dictate rental fees for nonprofit, for-profit. Again, what is the pro? Life expectancy would be as minimally affected. We would get the maximum we could. And we would know who's accessing the court, right? So when you rent our court, you have to apply for it. You have to have an insurance documentation. So we know who's in there on those off times. Similar cons, people are going over the fence, community frustration, and our current, because once you let somebody into the tennis court, you have access to 6 gates. Our rate is based on access to you have access to all 6 courts. So our rate is based on access to 6 full courts, which when you look at, some of the other private tennis clubs, $50 for 6 courts is a pretty good deal. But what if I'm a community member and I need 1 court, I need 2 courts? The 50, once you're in, and so the structure becomes a little expensive for those looking for just 1 court option. And then finally, the third option that was explored is have them available at designated times, but instead of utilizing our rental procedures, do a key card. Maybe there's a small deposit, but give a key or a key card to interested community members. Again, the pros, in the terms of the safeguard is there. The community would be able to access the courts at any time as long as they're not being utilized for a school function. The cons, more use reduces the life expectancy somewhat. And then if you take a look at, we talked before about if we do a key card, it would be, the electronic swipe pad there, and cameras to monitor the property. So you have to look at where our tennis courts are, power, the wiring for the cameras to get back to servers, all of those things. So based on the estimates Steve has gotten, where we can get power from, the devices, the cameras, and installation, and access to our servers, you're looking at about a $10,000 cost to do the cameras and the cards. And then the last piece would be, if you just said, okay, do the key card and give the key card, then one of the cons could be, you have no idea who and when is there. So you have some visual representation if you use the key card. So those are just pros and cons to the 3 options. Steve culminated all that, and I know it's small print for to see on the TV, but basically what it says is his recommendation as he's gone through it. He wanted to stay true to the 3 recommendations he presented, but his recommendation is to not go with any of those 3 options, but open 1 gate in the tennis courts during certain parts of the year that allow open access to our community when our school district isn't using it. So what he's suggesting is at the whenever spring tennis starts, that first date of practice, the gates would be open, to whenever the last date of fall tennis goes. And then in the winter months, so it would be open. There's multiple gates there, but one of those gates would be open. People can access it for individual use, or, hey, Seth, you want to go play tennis? Is that a yes? Are we setting up a time? Or But, people can go utilize it as a casual, we've got a group of people to go play tennis, let's go play together in an informal way. And then in the winter months, we'd lock it up, take the nets down, and then open it up the other parts of the year. Steve's based on this recommendation is, first of all, we have, obviously not everybody, but we're concerned about people hopping the fence and getting in that way. That he feels that the wear and tear and what we've seen with other public community courts is a concern, but it's not a serious concern based on what he's heard from talking to other people that have open access to his courts, or to their courts. When you take a look at $10,000 in expense to get key cards and cameras there, he feels if we want to spend $10,000 in cameras, he would prefer to add cameras to the elementary buildings where we have very few cameras at the point. So he's just prioritizing money spent in other locations. And so that's his recommendation. So it would be free community access from sometime in spring to sometime in fall through that one gate during off times. This would not qualify free use for everyone. What I mean by that is we've had people call and say, hey, we have a USTA tournament that we want to play. It may be a local group, but it's a USTA sponsored tournament, or we're going to bring in a group in a more formal structure. We're suggesting that those would still pay the rental fees. This is just as community members or tennis groups that have casual play that would like to utilize our tennis courts. So that is the recommendation from Steve. I'm supportive of the recommendation that he provided, and now I'll turn it back over to the board for feedback or questions or further discussion.
Any specific questions for Cameron?
Go ahead, Laura.
I just had one. The current tennis court, the older tennis courts that are on the other side of the football field, those are not locked at this point?
They're not locked.
Okay.
I don't know about tennis court care generally speaking, but is it typical to take down nets in the winter? Like, will they take down the nets on the open ones as well, or what is normal procedure?
I'm sorry,
on that?
Michelle. I'm not sure. I would assume because Steve recommended it, that's what we normally do, but I can't say for certain.
In the wintertime, it's typically to take them down because of the freezing and thawing of the nets, and just it stretches them out and so forth. So to take better care, it is better to take them down. Some courts don't do it. It's kind of up to them on that point, but I would recommend doing it as well.
Okay. If we go with something like this, do we have a schedule of use by the district that we'd make public so that the community members could know ahead of time whether or not they're going to arrive and the tennis team's going to be on them?
Yeah, so it's worked out pretty well with the middle school. There's been there's going to be some conflicts in terms of scheduling, but that's something that we can work to publicize, to even have a landing page to say here's when our scheduled practices or events are, so people can utilize that and see. Kind of the guidance that we've given in general terms is, during this time and in these months, this is when it's typically used for school events. But that's something that we can share with our community so they can see it. Yeah.
Okay. The last question I have is, do we have cameras at the middle school football field?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have cameras there because it's right next to the building. So it's, we're able to see times of day, but it's the proximity to the school building that makes it easier versus the stadium.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my opinion is if we follow the pattern that we're using with the middle school, I'm comfortable with that. I do think we need some good signage with a code of conduct for expectations. In addition to, like groups or what have you, I'm not open to, someone coaching and saying, I will coach you for tennis, et cetera, and making that a money-making enterprise, but using our courts for free. It would be for community use, recreation, et cetera. It's a community asset. But anytime dollars would come into play, I think our rental policy comes into play at the same time. And then, to be clear, if the high school is in session, the tennis courts wouldn't be available. That is the plan?
That's the rule as how it was at the middle
Yeah,
school.
I assumed so, but the way the language was being said, our primary job in that area is the high school. So I would want to be clear that when the high school is in session, when there's a football game, what have you, anytime there's any kind of event, whether, I don't want us to get into a back and forth, well, it's okay if I play tennis. No, it's not. If there's something going on that's school related, then it's not tennis. But in the middle of the summer, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't allow that for community use to play tennis. But like I said, as soon as, if it's a tournament and you're going to charge a fee for the tournament, then you can rent the facility.
Right.
I think that makes sense to everyone. So, yeah, but I am concerned about anyone climbing the fence.
Yeah.
So the sooner we move on that, unless there's, I think that's the general consensus, let's get this done.
Okay.
I
and
agree with the language, though.
Yeah.
Because even like you said, the football, but what about practices? Like, there's all kinds of practices going on at the football stadium in the summer,
Correct.
like football, soccer practice and
Right.
lacrosse. And so I guess you got to be clear on what the language.
Yeah, Rich, I need more clarity on that. So you're suggesting that if there is any event going on at the stadium, then we can't also use the tennis courts?
If there's like a football game, because we have cars coming back and forth, et cetera.
I don't know.
I would think that we wouldn't have them open for community use.
I have to think on that one a little bit more. That kind of threw me off. It never occurred to me that we'd restrict them unless they're being actually used by some kind of event or when school is in session during the day. I don't know why, 2 people couldn't play tennis while the football game's going on.
Again, that's something we can discuss.
There's not lights on the court, right?
No.
So that
Probably
might be
wouldn't come into play at all anyhow.
correct. I don't have an issue with somebody using them if there's another event going on where it doesn't impede, but I mean, at nighttime, there wouldn't be that concern.
You'd only run into it with your JV football games on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
And again, could they use them while the football game's going on? I don't see why not. I don't see, there's not overwhelming parking issues at a JV football game, are there? So that I have a concern about. The other one I wonder about is, like, currently I know, like, our neighborhood put together a little, like, clinic for our kids, and I don't know what courts they're using right now, not ours. So I don't mind, like, if money changes hands, that makes sense to me. I just don't know how we would possibly monitor that. Like, with a big, like, USTA tournament, I could see, but, like, if a coach is gonna take 3 kids up there, are we gonna notice? So I think the language is fine, I think, with the understanding that we may not know, and that's okay.
Well, they'll know they shouldn't be doing it if
Well,
we say
right.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
well, they know the rules, we know the rules, but I don't know that there's gonna be a whole lot we're gonna.
I don't necessarily think it's a rule we have to go out of our way to try to enforce, but it is a rule we should have.
Okay.
And the way the policy is written, it's clear that there is a rental fee if anybody's making money using our facilities, there's a rental fee. So, we've had this issue a couple times in the past. It's word of mouth. People report. That's how we find out about it. And then, Steve's office goes and does some investigating and figures out what would happen. And we've charged fees then, and people have paid those fees for utilizing that. Or we've sent letters stating that you could no longer use our property.
Yeah, I don't think we need Barney Fife trying to find. I'm sure there's people who would want to volunteer to be Barney Fife to try to find people who are taking advantage. But I do think we should have it as a rule so that if it does occur, we have the ability to address it.
Yeah, so we will, part of what's written up there is we'll get signage up in terms of the rules, the restrictions, you're utilizing this at your own risk. And then I think, as Ms. Kosick shared last time, the city's they're having discussions about their court. So that'll give us some time to see, hey, if it works, great, wonderful. If we're having some issues, maybe that can be timed with the city's courts being resurfaced, and we can make another decision at another time. So we'll move forward with that, and I'll communicate with the folks necessary and get the gates opened and everybody on the same page. Going back to number 1 is the schedule for rental fees. Now, it's in the exhibit in the back, but I also just copied it off so you had it handy. So let me be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the schedule of rental fees for direct and indirect costs be approved as it appears in Exhibit A. This is an annual item that needs your consideration. And as Steve shared with you through my update, he continues, on an annual basis to look at other similar-sized school districts that we base these costs on at the start of it, and we're still in line. So he's not recommending any increase to the rates. He is still recommending a surcharge for the additional cleaning that's necessary for our large group areas due to COVID. So that's not something that's approved here. It's on our website. So he's looking to continue that as long as we're still following the same disinfection procedures. So before I open it up to any questions or feedback on the rental rates, one adjustment that we would need to make is under the high school. It says tennis courts, $50 an hour. So what I would suggest that we add there is parenthetically we put a descriptor for only organized events or events that are paid events. And that's what we would, that would be the pay, and that would give us the ability as administrators to not charge for casual use. So, Mr. Micko, I don't know if you want to put not applicable to casual community use, or if you want to say only applies to organized competitions or fee-based events.
I'll let Shelley come up with however she wants to phrase it.
Okay.
Dr. Robert, do we need to put the same thing by the athletic field then under the middle school?
Yeah, that would be a good, I mean, that's what we've done in practice, but that's a good catch. We'll do the clarification there. So we'll add that to that middle school as well. Any other questions or feedback on the rental rates for next year? All right, so with that, we'll keep the rates the same for next year. We'll keep the surcharge as long as we're disinfecting at the same level we are. And for tennis courts at the high school and the athletic field at the middle school, we'll add a qualifier that it's excludes casual use by the community. Moving on to number 3, athletic department agreement with Huddle. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that an agreement with Huddle for subscriptions, assists, and automated outdoor cameras be approved for the period of August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2024 at a cost of $13,500 per year for 3 years for a total cost of $40,500 as listed in the exhibit. Payments are to be split between the district boosters and the booster team funds. Funding to be from the athletic fund, and that's found in Exhibit B.
That we need a motion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Any questions for Cameron? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes, then the motion carries.
Next, under our athletics seating ticket price increase, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that reserved seating ticket prices be increased by $2 per ticket for the 21-22 school year. Prices will be as followed. A per game ticket is $14 and a season ticket is $70. We do have a correction from our
How many games are there?
There's typically 5. Depends on the non-conference games, but most seasons are 5.
So you would save absolutely nothing by getting a season ticket.
Correct.
That would be your best bet then, is to get a season ticket.
And these are for the reserve seats. They're either,
Even better bet.
yeah, for both of them.
You could reserve that you find your spot. You want it for the whole season. You don't want to take your chances. So number 5, we do have a correction from the last agenda, as Steve explained, based on our state term pricing. And when we got the quote, there was an adjustment based on when the board approved it. So that adjustment is reflected there. that we correct the June 29th business services truck purchase. The price changed from $43,661.56 to $46,000.68. We do have a series of gifts from the Strongsville football backers for equipment for the middle school and high school football programs. They include a pair of varsity scoreboard battery-operated delay of game clocks, 2 portable power packs, wireless sideline controller, and wireless remote valued at $5,495. A Rogers 5-man sled valued at $6,505. An M-Series 5-man Royal Pro sled valued at $3,505. So we greatly appreciate the donation from the football backers and that gift to our football program. Any questions on business services before we move to curriculum? Under curriculum, we have 2 items. The first is a memorandum of understanding for the Ohio Online Learning Program. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the memorandum of understanding between the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio and Strongsville City School District be approved as presented in Exhibit C. So that's for our Lincoln Learning Program and others that we utilize through the ESC. And secondly, we have some training in early literacy we'll be doing with our staff. Under number 2, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Strongsville City School District pays to purchase letters, participant material bundle units, 1-to-4 print, and a 1-year license to train K-3 teachers and staff at a total cost of $42,229. The general fund will be reimbursed with ESSER funds when available. That concludes the curriculum report unless there's questions.
Cameron, can I just make a correction on the last one?
Sure.
So the letters, that will be directly with the ESSER funds. The ESSER funds are available, so
Okay.
they will not pass through.
Thank you, George. Under student services, we have a variety of resolutions for your consideration. The first, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board enters into contract with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio for admission of students for visual, audiology, and or hearing impaired services for the 21-22 school year per the attached Exhibit D. Number 2, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board enters an agreement with PCI affiliates and associates for nursing and health services for the 21-22 school year in the amount of $334,399.32. For the following year, $344,000 and $344,438.64. And for the final year of the contract, the amounts of $351,300.60 as found in Exhibit E. Continuing on through the student wellness funds, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board enters into an agreement with PCI in the amounts of $67,775.40 for social worker services to service students at Strongsville City Schools for the 21-22 school year per Exhibit F. And the last 2 are about student alternative placement. So be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board enters into a tuition excess cost agreement with Ed Alternatives for placement of students with disabilities for the 21-22 school year as found in Exhibit G. And number 5 provides the clearance for transportation services with Ed Alternatives for the 21-22 school year as well as it's found in Exhibit H. Any questions on student services? With that, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jenny Pelko, for the Human Resource Report. And there is an addendum, so if you want to get your green sheet out as well.
You sure you don't want to keep going with
I'm good,
mine?
I'm
Oh,
good.
okay. All right, under Human Resources, I have the following items for your consideration this evening. Under E1, we have a stipend for teacher-based team coach. We just had one late addition. All the rest were approved last time. Under E2, we have summer work for non-certificated staff. This is for certificated personnel who are participating in reviewing of student records during the summer to be paid at step E. Under E3, medical leave for an administrative staff member, medical leaves for certificated staff members, medical leave for a leadership team member, and medical leave for non-certificated staff member. Under E4, unpaid leave for certificated staff, unpaid leave for non-certificated staff. Under E5, volunteer coach. And under E6, we did have a correction to the June 29th agenda. We had appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts paid upon completion, but they should be prorated. So that's the change there. And then continuing with the addendum, under E6, we have another correction. We just were off by $1 there for one of our salaries for our certificated staff. Under E7, we have the abolishment of a non-certificated custodial position. Under E8, we have the retirement of one of our non-certificated staff members. Richard Miltner just announced to me the other day that he is planning on retiring. He's done a phenomenal job for us, wealth of knowledge, so we do certainly appreciate all he's given to our district. Under E9, we have the appointment of a certificated staff member and an appointment of a leadership staff member, and Kathy Starrick, who has been a bus driver, I believe she said 11 years here in the district, so far will now become the assistant transportation supervisor for the district. So we're thrilled to have her on board, and she was actually hired by us this afternoon, so she had a commitment this evening, but sends her regrets and is just thrilled and excited about her new role. I believe I talked to her after we met, and her and Curtis were already planning things together. So a great asset.
We expect her at the next meeting.
Okay, got it. Under E9, we have the appointment of a certificated supplemental contract. This is for a 6th class for orchestra. We already have approved the band and the choir at the last agenda. So that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
And there are no items for technology for this meeting, so that concludes the superintendent's report.
Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point of the agenda means all items appearing this agenda with asterisks are adopted by one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, we do have the one correction for ESSER funds for Section 8C2. They will be paid for with ESSER funds. They are available now. I don't remember any other corrections. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? I will say that one of our highlights is financial prudence, and even if it's $1, if we owe our valuable employees $1, we will make sure to get it right and get them that $1. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. You're back up, Cameron.
Thank you. So just briefly, as I shared with the board, share with the community at our August work session, the August 5th meeting, that's when, Jenny and I will have two items to share with the board. The first one is just sharing procedures, restrictions, rules for 21-22 school year. We've been going through and taking a look at all of our operation that we put in place last year. I've been working with the principals before they went on summer break to look at what those possibly could be for next year. And Jenny's going through the COVID piece of that in terms of communication protocols, notification that will still be in place. So we will be able to present that to the board, get your feedback, and look at what that would look like for the start of the school year. Obviously, the CDC published a couple days ago their updated guidance for K-12 schools. That will be taken into consideration. We will see what our Ohio Department of Health does with some of these recommendations. Typically, they weigh in and have a thought or share some guidance as well. So the next couple of weeks will give us time to finalize that and share that update with the board. We wrapped up or wrapping up a phenomenal summer learning program. And Jenny at the August 5th meeting will do kind of a recap of what we learned and the successes we had and some things that we'll look at doing for future years. So we'll have that in August as well. So if any of those pique your interest, tune into the August 5th board meeting.
And we have a deadline coming up for the 15th?
Yeah, so on the 15th, the ability to enroll in our virtual learning option, it's a completely asynchronous virtual learning option for the 21-22 school year, closes. The reason that closes is July 10th was the last day to request an out-of-boundary request. 15th is the last time to request for the virtual learning, at least for a semester. And then, later this week, Jenny and I, especially at the elementary level, start working on assignments for all of these requests to make sure we've got everybody right staffed. And that gives time for the secondary counselors to make sure they've got classes balanced for those kids that may not be attending in person next year. So thank you for the reminder, Mr. McCall.
Board of Education other. Do we have any Board of Education other? I will remind the community that on Wednesday, Home Days starts. I don't know if anybody else is excited, but I can barely control myself. I'm so excited. And I'm looking forward to the Goldfish Tent, which is my own personal joy in life. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, make sure to come out to Home Days and have a good time.
If
I
you're
have
hungry,
no other announcements.
if you're hungry, you can see Sherry and I at the pita tent.
Excellent. Even better reason. I was going to say if you're hungry, you can come to the Goldfish Tent. That's going to be a problem. So next is meeting notification. Our next regular Board of Education meeting is August 5th at 7 p.m. in this room. And then we also have a regular Board of Education meeting on Thursday, August 19th in this room. We do have need for executive session under the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to confer with an attorney for the Board of Education concerning disputes involving the board that are subject to pending or imminent court action.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? George, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. We will go into executive session at 8 p.m. We have no expectation for further business. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for your attention.